This podcast is sponsored by YSC Real Estate Group, offering a tailor-made service, versatility and expertise for all your real estate needs. Are you thinking about selling, buying, investing or having your properties managed? For more information, check our website, www.yscrealestategroup.com. We are passionate about real estate and we love to support local businesses. We hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Cheers.
What's up, guys? Welcome to episode number 37 with Behind the Business. Today, we have a very special guest, Jeremy Ho. Jeremy Ho is one of the co-founders of Monogram Coffee, a local coffee business that's all about coffee that inspires wonder and warmth.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome, Jeremy.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I've seen you guys have a couple stores, don't you?
Yeah, we have. So in Calgary, we have 3 stores, but we're opening one. Like it was supposed to open yesterday, but it's opening in about a week now, probably. Like you just know how construction delays go sometimes, but yeah. So that'll be our 4th store, and then we're opening a new concept in Burnaby, and that will actually be opening in like a week or so too. So.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So where's the new location?
It's in the University District.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So in the new development area there.
Yeah, there's that retail street. So we're right there. So I'm excited for that one actually.
Yeah, that would be a great spot for all the university kids.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody.
Well, I think even beyond that, like the neighborhoods in that area, like the Varsity and all of the, like I feel like there's not a lot of good cafes in the Northwest for whatever reason, and so and then there's the Children's Hospital there, so I think it'll be really good.
Yeah, because your first location was on in Marda Loop, right?
Yeah, in Altadore. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny because I used to go there all the time, like just for client meetings.
Yeah.
Like it was a good spot for just to have like meetings with clients and stuff like that when I was in the area. And then we met like afterwards, just playing floor hockey, and like I had no idea that you were one of the co-founders of it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't know that you were going there before we actually had met, Dave. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, appreciate that.
I was actually having a meeting there. Like I was there with the builder meeting because there's a builder that builds in that community, and he wanted to meet at that coffee shop. I was going, I've never been here before. So after that, it was a pretty cool vibe. So I just kept on going back there just because it was nice and quiet, good spot to sit. So.
Wow, much appreciated, Dave.
Yeah.
I've been there a few times.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah.
How long have you guys been open for, and like what got you in the business for, coffee? I feel like that's a very competitive space. You got Timmy's, you got Starbucks, and you got a lot of coffee shops coming up. What made you get into that?
Coffee is one of those things that like I never thought that I would be doing, obviously. I followed like the very typical, Asian path. So like I went to school for biomedical sciences, and I was, on track to do medicine, which I had a big passion for at the time. I did like everything. I did the MCAT, I interviewed and everything, and I got rejected twice from medical school. But during that time, I sort of like, I started to fall in love with coffee, but just as like something new, like just something exciting. But it, I never considered it as passion. I visited my sister in a cafe in Vancouver, and this was like in 2005, and she's going to school there, and the cafe had coffee that had like tasting notes like wine. When you have wine, it's like this wine tastes like this and this. I was like, oh, that's weird. I've never seen that for coffee. For me, coffee at the time was just like you just load it with cream and sugar and you just drink it when you need to stay awake. So
That's how I drink my coffee, just cream and sugar.
Yeah, that's how most people drink their coffee. Like, and so all I'm saying is like, I guess I didn't know much about the industry at the time, and like so I perceived it very much like everyone else does. And but yeah, so that I took a sip of those coffees, and I could actually taste like the flavors of some of them, and that really kind of like sparked my interest. It was a bit of an aha moment for me, and so that's what got me into coffee to begin with. And I came back home. I was going to school. I worked part-time in a cafe and just started developing my passion. And I really started to fall in love with working in a cafe and just learning the vast amounts of information that sort of you are learning. That when you're in an exponential learning phase of something new, it's always so fun. And it's so that really drew me in. I thought I was going into medicine, but I think as doors closed, others opened, and I really started to think about like, okay, well, if instead of trying more for medicine, why don't I just follow what I think I'm actually passionate about, and that's coffee. So I just started working in like other cafes in Calgary and just doing that full time. I really loved it, and then met my two partners, and we decided to branch off. And so we started Monogram actually not too long ago, just at the very end of 2014, pretty much beginning of 2015. So about 6 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of when I got into the real estate industry, and that's actually around the time that I went to the shop. So
yeah, so that was probably the right. In fact, when you had went, was it actually only half the size of what it is now? Do you remember? Or
no, it had the seating area on the right.
Okay. Yeah, when we first opened that one, it was only like 400 square feet, and and it like where the seating area is was actually a hair salon, and then we ended up taking over that side, and then we bought like that side, and then just blasted through, and so good times.
Because didn't you go to like some of those like coffee like barista like championship stuff too, like the events? I saw you guys have a bunch of awards there and stuff.
Yeah, that's something that's been kind of a fun part of what we've always been doing. And so one of my partners, Ben, and I, we've both we were both in like the coffee competition circuit before. So there's like a whole sub world of like, like coffee competition. It's huge for our industry. Like it's if you do well, it's big for our industry, but to the average person, like no one has ever heard of it, right? It's one of those kind of things. But it's really important for our industry, and so we've over time we've won
competitions.
Sorry?
What do you guys do at these competitions?
Yeah, so you make like 4 espressos, 4 milk drinks, and then 4 signature drinks for a panel of judges. And you do this in 15 minutes. But it's kind of like a mix of like, it's not just making the drinks and just serving them. There's like a performance aspect, and there's also like an innovation aspect. So usually the way competition has evolved now, it's like you're presenting an idea or a concept that is really innovative and moving the industry forward. Yeah, and sometimes these are things that are like very, very specific. They're very like cutting edge and progressive, like new varieties, new processing techniques, new things like that, even on the growing side. So it's very much like a celebration of, I think, all things new in coffee. And then you're sort of presenting that with like a script. There's kind of like, it's essentially like a performance in some ways. Like, how like Formula One is like the cutting edge of like car racing, but like not all of those cars are very applicable to like standard road cars, but the technology trickles down eventually, right? So it's the same kind of idea. Like in the competitions, you're trying to do something that's like probably not applicable in everyday industry, but then those innovations help move little things forward over time. So
yeah, that makes sense. That's cool though.
Tell me more about like your partnership and how that formed, because you make it sound so easy. You guys formed a partnership, opened up a shop. Like I know there's a lot of work behind that.
Yeah.
Like how did it like it actually start to happen? Like you and your friend Ben, and is there someone else just started talking? Yeah. And like how did that go?
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, I'm sure you two, I don't know how many partners there are, but like having a partner or more is actually a very challenging thing. It can either be the worst thing in the world or the best thing, right? And I think more often than not, it probably is bad. But I feel really blessed because our partnership has gone very well, and I think it's because we all trust each other, but B, I think we all share very, very similar like levels of integrity and like ethics and morals and values. So and they're all very similar. So I think it helps when you're running the business that you can sort of trust that another one of your partners is going to make the same decision as you, or like in the same spirit of the decision. And we've put down all, we've explicitly written like all our values and our mission and our purpose as a company, and like all of those are like company wide so that our whole team is accountable. But in terms of the partnership itself, like the way it started, we were just friends, and honestly I think we got lucky because I don't think knowing what I know now, we didn't know each other well enough to know if we would be good partners or not. And so that's why I say we're lucky, because we were good friends, sure, but like that's so different than like a working relationship. It's like
that's what happened to me and Dave.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've known each other since like grade 9 or 8. So
wow, yeah. See, that's insane. But maybe you do know each other well enough then to know that you would want to go in business or not.
Yeah, it's different though, because like when you're hanging out as friends, it's like, okay, you're hanging out with them for maybe like, I don't know, 8 hours max or something like that. But when you're working with someone, it's like, I think we spend more time with each other or talking to each other than our own relationships. Like
yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. So
you're pretty much married to each other. Like, let's face it, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's totally different because sometimes like in friendships, you may not like often sometimes you're not always challenged like in different scenarios that you would in business. Like sometimes you're not necessarily making like stressful money decisions or like risk decisions per se, like in friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that often is where it shows like people's values and like, their honesty and stuff too. So, it's hard to know, I would say, but yeah, I think we all just we're friends and we all shared like a similar, we've all, when you're with friends or like coworkers, sometimes you talk about like, oh, like if I were to do things, it'd be like this or whatever. So we felt like we all shared the same set of values, and so we decided to jump in because we also felt like we had complementary skill sets too. But honestly, beyond that, like I feel like we got really lucky because I don't think we knew enough about each other to have gone into truthfully. So
yeah. There's things I'm still learning about Dave. Right?
Oh yeah.
It just keeps evolving, right?
Yeah. I'm sure he'd say the same thing about you.
Yeah, it takes time. And the thing too is that like a big thing for us is just not getting emotional about things. And like if there's an issue, like we'll resolve it. Just so it doesn't carry on to the work, and kind of drag into things. Otherwise, like if you don't come to a solution to a problem, it's just going to grow exponentially, especially with someone else, right? So we always kind of try to clear the air and move forward, because at the end of the day, we have the similar vision of what we want to achieve, and that supersedes anything that we feel.
Exactly. Yeah, it's you kind of like there's something bigger than you that you're both working towards, right? So you kind of have to put your differences aside to like make sure you're working towards it. But yeah, like is it just you two?
It's us two as partners, and
Yeah.
then we have what's it called, another associate with us, and then we have like another 3 that are just back end. So it's about 6 of us now, and yeah, it's like it's different when you're dealing with just yourself, but when you're dealing with other people as well, you need to be able to kind of take a step back and take a more of a managerial or leadership role on things. So
yeah.
How many staff are you guys with right now?
Including like our roastery and warehouse, I think we're at like 40 or so.
What?
Yeah.
Do you guys make your own coffee too?
Yeah, we roast our own. So we source all our own coffee. We roast it. Yeah, we have our cafes, but we also have like our online and subscription business, and then our wholesale as well too. So we supply cafes and restaurants and things like that across Canada, a little bit in the States, and a little bit in Asia too. So
crazy. Yeah, because I seen your guys' coffee in BC. I was like, oh shit, like it's the same Monogram Coffee here.
Yeah. Hopefully it's ours, not someone that ripped it off. No, yeah. Packaging. Yeah. We have some really good partners in BC. Yeah. So
yeah, that's cool. So is the roasting business like its own separate business?
Kind of. So we did actually set up like our roasting facility as technically a separate business. because we wanted it to, so community is like one of our 5 core values. And so what we did was we set up our roasting business to also be what's called like a toll roasting facility. So essentially, let's say like, you two wanted to branch off into the coffee business and you sourced your own raw coffee, but like, it's a huge amount of capital to open up a roasting facility. And so maybe you just want the roasting service done. So we would do that roasting service for you for your like exact standards for a toll price, and then roast it, bag it up, and then you pretty much give us the raw coffee, we roast it, bag it up, and then send it to you, and you can, and it's in your own bags and whatever. And it's just a small part of our business, but we like that community feel to it, and it helps some other smaller, like if we had the service back when we just started, we would have totally done it, right? So it helps a lot of like small players and medium-sized players, but technically it's a separate business, but really it's just there to supply our business.
Yeah, so it's like a subsidiary, but it's primarily for your roasting, and then you guys kind of contract out
exactly.
some roasting
Yeah.
if you need to. That's pretty sweet, because then that means we could do a YYC coffee if we wanted to.
Yeah, we could. It would probably be under Monogram, because unless you've already sourced the coffee. But yeah, we could totally do something.
Sure, that'd be really cool, actually, because
Yeah.
it would be a really good client gift, because I find that a lot of our clients love coffee. Like I'm drinking coffee right now.
Yeah.
And so are you, I guess.
Everyone drinks coffee. Everyone drinks coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in Canada, where I think per capita, we're one of the top 10 consumers of coffee in the world. So
yeah, I think that's like one of the first things I need in the morning just to start my day is a cup of coffee. It's like first thing I'm doing is grinding beans.
Yeah, it feels incomplete if you aren't able to get that, right? Like you feel like it's become part of your like mental, ritual, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the biggest drug in the world.
Yeah, a lot of people do like to say it's a drug. I don't say it like that, but it definitely is. Like people are definitely dependent on it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I can't start my day without it, so I have to drink a cup of coffee at least. And like I'll even have a cup, like I'll drink like half my coffee in the morning, and then I'll leave like just maybe a quarter of it for the evening. So when I come home, I'll just finish that, and I'm like good.
Good for the evening. So you're just a 1 cup a day then, Dave?
Yeah, 1 cup.
Jason, how about you? How many do you drink?
One cup.
One? Yeah, that's good. I actually only drink about 1 or maybe 2 sometimes, but yeah, people always think I drink a ton of coffee every day, but it's not true.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What even makes a good coffee?
Good question. That's $1 million question, Jason. So there are definitely very specific tangible quality things. So there's sort of, I would say, there's several factors that can that determine a coffee's quality. So one is the variety of a coffee. So like apples, there's different types of apples. Coffee is actually a fruit. So it's grown like a coffee cherry, and then the seeds inside are like the beans that we roast and brew. But so every coffee plant is like a different variety from a different species, and that actually all determines the coffee's flavor. So just like there's multiple types of apples, and we all know that like a Golden Delicious will taste different from like a Granny Smith, right? It's the same thing. Same with grape varieties, right? A Pinot Noir grape is different than, a Pinot Grigio or like something else. Like there's so many differences because of variety. So well, that's one. The second thing is something called processing, which describes the process of taking the coffee seed from the fruit itself. And you can do that there's so many ways of doing it. There's fermentation involved in this. You can leave it in the cherry and let it dry and then take it off, or you can take it off right away and then let it ferment on its own, or everything in between. There's so many innovations happening in this field too that are borrowing from the wine industry, but that actually influences the way a coffee tastes. It can make it taste a lot more like fermented or not. So that's another one. And then the third is kind of like the roasting. So the coffee gets dried and then it gets, shipped. But then the roasting side is huge. And then that's philosophical and on how your business decides to approach that.
When you say roasting, I just want to make sure I understand. Roasting is just how you bake it? Like the
Yeah,
kind of-
so it's actually not baking. It's like same idea. You're heating up the beans, but baking implies like a single temperature, and you're putting something in for like that one temperature for sort of a period of time, right? Like, you know, when you bake bread, whatever, 350, you put in your loaf, and then after 20 minutes, you take it out. Roasting. So if you looked at our roasting software, it's actually really we control and track a lot of things. So our roaster is hooked up with a ton of temperature probes to like we have a couple screens, and they all track like through a software, essentially a graphing roast profile of the roast. So it measures the time and then the temperature, and then it measures like rates of rise for many different parts of the bean of temperature. And so it tracks like a graph, a profile of the roast. And then, so depending on how you follow this profile, you can actually influence the way the flavors of the beans are. So you're going through many different temperatures, you're changing settings so that your roaster kind of feeds in, you know, different, more or less heat, to put it simply. And so you're doing different things. There's different chemical reactions that are happening in the bean that produce flavors. So that's a quality step as well too. And then the brewing side is the other one. You can still screw up a really good coffee and right, like you could buy an amazing coffee and screw it up on the brew and it won't taste as good. So I would say what defines it, like those are the stats that can influence it, but what defines quality, it for sure
it's so complex.
it's super complex.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is subjective what you think is like, if you enjoy something or not, really, that's what it comes down to, right? And that is subjective, but I do think there's actual objective standards of quality. There is like a scoring sort of like rubric that you can score a coffee at. And so you look at like, you know, if there's defective flavors or not. There's like a very standardized thing that people use like across the world. You look at the sweetness of the coffee, you look at the acidity, you look at if there's really interesting flavors, like unique redeeming characteristics, so on and so forth. So, you know, there are some of those things too, but whether you like that or not is totally subjective.
Yeah. Like my favorite note is like the chocolatey caramel, like dark roast. And then like, I just, like I either drink it like through a drip, like I weigh it out.
Yeah, nice, good.
Like a 17-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
And then I either do it through what's it called, the AeroPress, or like the Haro V60.
Yeah, you're
like
well equipped.
Just before COVID, like I bought a espresso maker, and I started getting really into coffee just because we used to always go out and buy coffee, right? And like, you know, coffee adds up when you get it from like Starbucks, and it's pretty basic. So so what I started doing was I started buying beans and just testing them out and seeing which ones I liked. And every time like I went, like if I traveled somewhere, I'd buy a bag of beans and see how those beans tasted, right? So it kind of became like a process, because like I just wanted to find a good cup of coffee and a good bean. So.
Definitely, yeah.
Mine's pretty standard. I just put the Nespresso in the machine and hit.
Nespresso's good.
Yeah.
Like they make pretty good pods.
Yeah, it's definitely the most convenient for sure. So
I just like the process. Like it reminds me of school, like a lab testing.
Yeah, you're doing it right in that you're measuring every like part of it, and that's one of the key things for sure.
Yeah, consistency too with that, because then you get a good quality cup that's consistent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When you first started out this business, Jeremy, it seems like you have all these other avenues that you've branched out on. Like initially, what was your goal? And like you had one shop, now you have, you know, 4. Like, how did you guys start evolving into these other avenues?
Yeah, how did you guys like scale it up?
Yeah, so I would say we always had a feeling that we wanted to grow Monogram more than just one cafe. From the very beginning, we didn't have like a very clear vision of like what we wanted it to be exactly, but we knew we wanted to grow it. but we didn't have direction. It only was until a few years ago that we mapped out like what our 10-year goal is, what like our, like our company direction would be and things like that. But at the beginning, we just kind of wanted to grow. I guess it was more organic than anything, where, and it still kind of is, but like, we didn't have a lot of metrics that we were trying to hit to grow in certain areas. But we did know, like, knowing the business, like I feel like we knew the business side well, of like kind of what you need to do to grow, and like what revenue streams and things like that are important for growth, especially for like the type of brand that we were trying to build. So we knew that at some point we would need to roast. We weren't roasting when we first started, so we knew that we would have to at some point, but it needed to make sense for us financially. We knew that we wanted to wholesale because that's a huge sort of like revenue, and that's like the scalable side, is like the online and wholesale and the roasting side. But we also knew, like, we have a passion for the cafes, and like we love that physical manifestation of our values and our brand, and it builds the brand, like the cafes, from the beginning at least. So we knew that was an important part, and then it's just kind of like fitting all of those things in just kind of happened organically at the beginning. And it wasn't until just more like, a few years ago that we were trying to do things a bit more strategically. But it's still like a lot of things are still a bit reactive, right? It's not everything is like totally proactive, but like if opportunities present themselves, we see if they fit within our growth plan, and then we, act on them or turn them down depending on what we see. So it's not all just like, for sure, we're going to do this, this, and this, and then we've executed them and they're done. Things still come up. So
for sure. That's what I find with business is like, you see opportunities that you may or may not want to take, right? And if it makes sense, you go, you try it out. If it doesn't work, you're like, okay, yeah, let's scratch that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. As entrepreneurs, it's like you're always looking to expand, in all ways, right? So
yeah, and it's always like, what you said, it's like weighing out those, like, you will have opportunities, right? Like there's always opportunities, but it's like weighing out what is the best ones for you at the time and what makes sense for you. So yeah, for sure, it's always kind of like you're always coming to those forks on the road, right?
Yeah, timing is everything. So yeah, it's grown quite a bit though from the time that even I probably saw you last in person, because like I didn't even know about the downtown location, because the latest one that I saw before that was the Elbow Drive. And that was a really good spot there because it's pretty good traffic and really good community in Britannia, right?
That by Elbow and 50th?
50th, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit down, so it's 40. Technically, I think it's 40. It's either 40th Ave, I think it is. So it's right where that Sunterra is.
Sunterra.
Yeah, it's right in there. It's that brick one. So we're right on the corner on Elbow. So yeah.
Yeah, that one's pretty busy, like lively.
When you started, were you working in the coffee shops? Are you still working in the coffee shops, or what's your role now as the company's growing?
Yeah, so we were working for sure in the cafes when we first started. Like,
of course.
Yeah, definitely, and that was our background too. We had that experience. Like we all were baristas at some point, so we knew, like, we understood that side, which I think is really important. You want to be able to like know kind of every part of the business, and like, you want to be able to empathize with what your staff and team are doing too, and understand that. But yeah, we did that a lot. When we first started, we actually, before we opened Altador, Dave, actually the one that you went to, we actually built a coffee cart, and we did like a little pop-up in an art gallery, like before we even did that. And it was like so slow, and like, we were like twiddling our thumbs, but like we just needed to do something. So we were definitely like get down and dirty into all the stuff. And but nowadays, like we knew that and we actually had to actively do this. It's hard to separate yourself actually from those like day-to-day things, like being a barista, and like, knowing when to replace yourself essentially with staff to allow you to focus on other things. And that was a challenge, but we had to do it. And so nowadays, like we don't really work in the cafes at all. Like, sure, maybe if it was like slammed and I happened to be there one day, I might, help some customers out and like help the team. But not in any really formal way. And we have great teams that probably do it better than us anyway. So yeah, so it's cool to see. But now what I focus on is mostly like our marketing and like our brand and a bit of like the culture side of Monogram. And then, I still do a couple other random things, like I do a lot of all our payroll, for example, or, those kind of things like hiring and interviews I do as well too. But I mostly try to focus on the marketing side. That's kind of my area.
Yeah, because sometimes I still see you in the shop, like you're just in the back. Like I've been there a couple of times, and you're just in the back on the computer, just like working.
Yeah. In a non-pandemic time, it's actually kind of nice to be able to, like, let's say you are working on your computer, but it's nice to be in the cafe sometimes and so I do enjoy doing that too. Mm-hmm. I like being in the cafe. So
yeah. For a growing business, like I feel like this is kind of what me and Dave are going through, but like what helped you learn how to start delegating the task? Like what do you think was a shifting point for you to be like, okay, I actually got to do this. Like it's actually really hard to let go of that stuff.
Yeah. I think when you start realizing that like your time is important. So like when you don't, and to be honest, I still like, there's still times I struggle with this for sure. But like when you are working like, 24/7, at some point, you have to realize that there's more work than like you can do. And that's totally up to you. Right. And so I think it's a couple things. One is that I think you have to realize that your time is important. And so you need to, make sure that you're focusing. You need to focus on your sweet spot and the things that you feel like you're good at and what you want to do and your strength for like, the business and the partnership you both have. Like I'm sure each of you are good at something different. And so I think the more that you realize that like, hey, you know what, this is how I can best add value to the business is actually doing these things. But you find like, oh, but I'm actually like, 80% of my time is actually doing all these other things. Not saying they're not important, but they're maybe not valuable for the business to have you do that. That's a good indicator that you need to offload those. Right? Like, cause like
we're going through that right now. I think we're going through that right now.
Yeah. I feel like you're always going to go through it, to be honest. You're always going to go through those stages, but I think especially when you're in the growth stage too, like I'm sure, real estate, I know is it's wild right now. Right. So it's great. Like, I'm sure you're going through that growth stage, but you start realizing like the only way that you can continue to grow better is like when you have people in a bit more specialized roles and then you can focus on the things that you're good at. Like it makes sure, I could be working in the cafes right now, but like that's literally not going to add any value to Monogram at all. Like, and so I think that's one. And then second, I think you have to really learn to trust your team. So if you have good people, I think you need to like recognize that they're good and actually give up control, which I think is extremely hard for people that started the company like you two. I'm sure that's a really hard, because you always think that you can do the thing the best, and maybe you can, but the only way you can grow is if someone else is doing it for you, or else there's no way you can work harder, right? Like ask yourselves, can you really work harder right now? Probably not. So how are you supposed to grow, right? Like, what are you gonna work 26 hours in a day? Like it's impossible. So, it's just at a certain point you can't work any harder. So the only way you can grow is if you need people, doing that work and doing it and following your vision, right? So yeah, I think it's those two things. Yeah.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, exactly. And like, like I think also too, I mean, you each have your own personal values and preferences, but like at a certain point too, it's like, do you want to be working every like 24 hours a day? Don't, like, you may want to actually like maybe you want full control of your hours. Maybe you only want to work like 4 hours a day. I don't know. But like to be able to do that, to be able to have that choice, you need to also be able to have, delegation of tasks, right? Yeah. And then you can spend time on other things too, right? Like your business, not only your life, right?
Yeah, that is true.
But I had to learn that too.
How are you finding, because you have a staff of 40, how are you screening the people you hire? Like, how are you finding the people in place for these roles? Like, do you do like a lengthy interview? Do you like, how are you screening these people and finding these people?
Yeah, so I actually still do all the hiring myself. I don't know if maybe that's something I need to delegate, but one of the strengths of our team is I think that we've hired well, but we've had to learn this over time too. So I think there's a few stages. So one is like where you cast your net, where do you ask for applicants? And one thing that we've tried to learn lately is that, we want to have a more diverse team. We want to have a team that like reflects the diversity of our community more. And so I think we have to expand beyond our normal channels of asking for people that want to work for us. So like, we know if we just send out a job posting on Instagram with our following, but our following maybe is like mostly like 20 to 30-year-olds, like predominantly white, probably like 60% female, 40% male. So like we're gonna get those exact candidates, right? So if we want a more diverse team, we have to start actually actively seeking out more like maybe community postings in different community groups that are different ethnicities or races or like whatever. And so we use some of our partnerships that we've made in the past and see if they will distribute the like job postings through their communities too. So we try to lean on our community partners. So that's a new thing. So that's kind of how we cast primarily is through social or through these like community postings. And then we ask them essentially to send them the resume, but also talk about which of our 5 core values that they most strongly align to. Because I just want them to start thinking like, do these values align to me? And then like start just putting some thought into like, you want people to put some effort into their application, right? So that is like a good way to start getting a good sense of candidates. And then I interview.
You have 5 core values, and then you ask them which values they connect with the most.
Yeah, which of the 5 they feel like they most strongly connect with, and they just write something quick about it, and why.
What are the 5 core values? I was curious.
Yeah, it's community, serving others, stewardship, quality, and wonder. Those are 5. Yeah. Yeah, and then we interview, and I have like this list of questions has evolved over time. I mean, you know how interviews go, like it's kind of fluid, but I usually try to assess those values in different ways throughout the interview. Like who knows if that works or not, but I do try to do that. And I do 30-minute interviews online, and then and then we do references and then hire. So
I feel like that's what we should start doing, Dave, because the way we're looking for people is just be like, hey, do you want to work with us?
Well, yeah. I think we definitely need to vet our process a bit better. Especially.
But every industry might be different too. I only know our industry. I have no idea how the real estate industry works, and perhaps it is more like you have personal connections. There's like superstars that you want to target, and like those are, I think those are valuable too. I don't think that you should not do that, but if you are, let's say you're at the point where you're like, we just want a group of applicants, like you want to just cast the net out and see, then I think it's important to figure out how you're doing it and how you're going to evaluate. But that's learned over time, I think, over too. You'll like I think of some of our hires before, like in what we ask them. I used to ask the dumbest questions that are like so, and like afterward I'm like, wait, what was I trying to get from that question? Like I probably like there's no reason why I needed to ask that question. So it's just, I don't know, it's just all learning.
Yeah, it's a process, because we just started hiring more people like this year, so
right.
And just because things just been kind of crazy right now, so
but,
like before that we weren't even thinking about it.
Well, especially if it's like you want to build your team, then I think the most important thing is making sure that people are the same, like they share the same vision and values as you. I think that's the most important thing. And you'll make mistakes for sure, right? You'll have to fire some people at some point, which sucks, but like it's just part of the process.
Yeah, it's just business, nothing personal.
Yeah.
How important would you say structure is to your business?
We learned this the hard way. I think it's extremely important. I think it's super important. Like we went through so many years of not that much structure, and more of just like, we'll all get the work done. Don't worry. Like we got it. Like, like you'll, what I mean? Like, and I think what structure does is, especially as you're growing, like like you two right now are in this growth stage, structure, I think, provides accountability. That's what it does. It provides accountability for people, and also eases stress a little bit. Like structure is there to help you be organized, and so you don't have to like constantly be thinking about everything that you need to do or to like what you should focus on or not. So I think structure is super important. I think it's even like personnel structure is important too. Like who's working, like who, like your like, you know, your spheres of responsibilities and organizational chart. Like I feel like those are important so people know who to talk to. Like I think the more questions that you can answer for people like through structure is, I think, a positive, because it just helps your team be more efficient. Now it sounds like we have amazing structure, which we definitely don't, but we are learning, and you have to invest in a lot of tools to help you. So we have done that, but I see the difference between having good structure and bad structure. And trust me, we have had bad structure, and now it's like a little bit better, but it's still probably not where it needs to be.
Well, it's different because you guys are dealing with like 40 staff too, right? So it's like, and not only on the like the retail front, you guys got the roastery and the wholesale business too. So it's like those are almost 3 different businesses on their own.
But I do think like even on a small team, like I just think about if we had the structure and accountability earlier on, and we're used to that, and you sort of get it helps, it becomes part of your culture, like in some ways too, right? And I think like how much stronger we probably would have been since then, but it's all learning. But I do think like even if you have, I think when you know, beyond like when you have more than one person each to talk to, I feel like, which you do, I think, you know, you definitely need more structure, but you hardly learn until it's always like, you always feel like you're always catching up. So that's how I feel, at least all the time. But
we're always playing catch up. It's like, okay, what needs to be done? What's next? You know,
totally. Yeah.
Do you guys have like weekly meetings or?
Yeah, we do. So we have like, so the 3 owners, we always have a 2-hour like catch-up meeting on Wednesday mornings. So that's kind of where we talk about a lot of different things, like because sometimes we don't know what like each person's team is doing, right? Like, and we also main strategy things to talk about, you know, personnel issues, whatever. So that's that. And then on Fridays we sort of check in with any of our like senior leadership staff that like directly report to us. So, but we do it all 3 of us. So we do that for half an hour every Friday. So that's what we do on like the more senior level. And then the hope is that our manager team is always checking in with our barista team as well too. So
if you could go back to when you first started, what advice would you give yourself?
oh man, so much advice. I would say definitely, you know, one of the biggest things and advice I would learn is to like definitely have better balance, and to like value, you know, all the parts of your life. Like your business shouldn't be your life. Like it should be a big part of your life, but it should not be the only thing. I think there's way more important things, and you know, I think only focusing on that, and like we get it. There's seasons, right? There's sometimes you have to dive a bit more into it, but when it's like all encompassing, I don't think that's necessarily healthy for like you or like your relationships or like anything like that. So that's something I definitely had to learn, and I'm still learning. But and I know that's like counter to like the cool entrepreneur, you know, a lot of like entrepreneurs love to like have pride in how much they work and how little they sleep, and like the hustle and the grind, which like, sure, I get it, but like, I feel like that's glamorized a bit too much sometimes. And I don't think it's necessarily healthy.
I think everyone wants it, but then when you're actually in it, you're like, what the hell's happening?
Totally. Like everyone from the outside, it looks cool, right? Because it's like, oh, cool. Like they're pursuing a dream and they're like making it happen. And like, yeah, I get it. But like you can do that, but still have balance. And in some ways, when I see like people that have balance and have been able to achieve a lot too, I'm always like even more jealous of those people, because I'm like, well, you've been able to figure it all out in some way. You know, so I feel like, and that helps you also make decisions with like delegating and like, you know, freeing up time, or like even just knowing like what you're okay giving up or like accepting, you know, like I said, you can work 24 hours in a day, but like, you know, for what, you know, are you, for us, it's like, so I can work like make this much more for our business, do like, sure, I'm sure maybe there's some opportunities I'm giving up by not, or maybe or I am getting when I do, but sometimes you just have to give some things up too. But I know I'm like in the minority. I know a lot of people say like, oh, you gotta nose to the grindstone, you only gotta work. But I would say that's one thing I would have learned. And then like the other, just what you guys have talked to me about, just like structure and having a clear vision of what you want Monogram, or like for me, Monogram to be and your business to be from the very beginning, and actually like writing those down and thinking about them. And then like as you grow, you'll have like a distinct like, direction. I feel like we didn't do that till not too late, but like I wish I had done that earlier on to give us a bit more focus. So
realign the goals.
yeah, exactly. And like your values as a business, I think.
Yeah, I think it's something that we should, because we actually have like a mission statement and kind of like
yeah, that's great.
A common goal that we want. But I feel like that's like something that we can always tune as well, because it's not like a fixed thing that can never be changed, right? So
yeah,
I think
totally.
your vision kind of changes and grows as you grow as well.
Yeah. It's good to like check in with that, right? And at least just continuously think about things like that.
Well, we were on another podcast and they asked us where we saw us in 5 to 10 years, and I had no idea. We should probably talk about this.
Yeah, they're like, what's your vision for the next 5-10 years? I'm like, that's a great question. Like, we didn't even think about that.
What's your vision for the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, like we do have a 10-year vision. So it is to be like the biggest specialty coffee company in Canada.
Wow.
And so we want to have like, and just be known as a company that lives and by our company's purpose and like really exemplifies it in our communities. And so that's gonna grow through wholesale, retail, and online. And so we do want to be a major player, but it's what we call our big, hairy, and audacious goal. That it is really scary. Like it's a bit scary to share it because it's like, oh well, what if we don't like it? What if we fail? Which we definitely could. It's an enormous goal, but yeah, I think it just it's inspiring that it motivates us to work hard towards it. But yeah, that would be ours. But again, we didn't figure that out till like halfway through this journey. So I agree with you. I think it is important because it does help you know what you should be doing or not doing. Just like we talk about racism, like there's all these opportunities that come up and sometimes you just don't know what to take. But once you have a bit more of like your vision, and the other thing I would say is the vision should be like reflective of your personal, what you think. Like it doesn't always have to be like, oh, I want to be the most dominating real estate group in the city. It doesn't have to be that at all. It can just be like, hey, our vision is to actually do this. I don't know how the business works, but like do this revenue or just sell this many houses in a year, and we'll be good with that. And just that's our goal. It's like let's hit that and maintain it, and that's just as good too, right? So it is personal. It doesn't always have to be like the flashy goal at all, but as long as you have a goal, then you know what to do, right? Maybe you'll spend more money or less money on certain things, like
yeah, that just comes with scaling, right? Because I find that as you grow a business too, like you're also increasing your costs and expenses and everything like that. So you kind of want to have that growth be exponential to a certain point where it's like it makes sense to that point as well. Because like we hear about it all the time in real estate teams. Like they're like, we wish we didn't grow the team so big because now you have to essentially feed this machine just to keep it going.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, it's kind of like a certain point of where you want to be, and also like quality of balance in your own personal life and business, right?
Exactly, right? Like you just knowing what you would be happy with, I guess, and like what you want, like what I see to be, and like maybe it doesn't have to be the biggest, right? But if you're happy with where you want it to be positioned, then it's like sweet, we have our sweet spot, and I love it, and that's what it is, and so it's whatever you want it to be. But
I think our goal is 100 deals a year.
Yeah, that's
cool.
Yeah, that's an amazing goal. Like I think, and if you know that, then it's like that's like a great it's simple, it's concise, it's good, it's like there. And then it's like, okay, how are we going to do that? So it's like, what's our plan? When are we going to get there? Like, what do we need for it? Yeah, I think that's awesome.
It's like taking that big vision and then like breaking it down to smaller attainable goals, like yearly, monthly, weekly, daily, and just focus on those tasks, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I find that hard too. Like we still have some challenges with that, but I find it definitely does help. Like, especially, you know, on a month to month or year to year basis, like it's very easy to get confused.
Yeah, that's true. How did you guys come up with the name Monogram?
Well, the answer I give to like the general public is we love like the meaning behind the name Monogram. So that monogram is like a, you know, it's like a stamp where it's comprised of individual like letters to make like a monogram of, like, you know, family names might have like a monogram, right? Like, you know, whatever, for me it'd be like JH or something, right? And they usually stamp something to market as a unique stamp. So we loved how it was kind of like, well, it's like many different people coming together to create a unique stamp on like our coffee industry. But truthfully, that's not how we came up with the name. That the name was because we were just like suggesting names that we thought sounded cool, and we're like, oh, this one sounds good. Like it rolls off the tongue well, and like, you know, so then we chose it, and then we looked into meanings. We're like, oh, it actually is like we like the meaning, so like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, it's a cool name.
Yeah.
So just by random, you guys picked Monogram for the company name.
Well, I mean, it's like random in the sense that you know, you're trying to think of names, right?
Yeah.
And so you're suggesting them, and like you hope that you think that what you're suggesting is good. I'm sure you know what it's like, and then you're just like, okay, I guess it's that. Like, you know, I know my business partner was like, oh, it's kind of like children, which like I don't have any, but like for him, he does. And he's like, yeah, you don't know if the name is right until you actually have the child and then they become what it is. So it's like, you come up with a name, you think you like it, but it won't fit until someone grows into it. So I guess it's the same.
Just evolves into it.
Yeah, totally.
What's your guys' best seller?
Like for drinks, lattes.
Or for coffee?
Oh, for coffee? It changes because our menu is seasonal, so it always changes. So we don't necessarily have like a one specific like bestseller. So it definitely, it's hard to say, but a lot of people like the approachable like classic version, like flavor profile. So like what you like, Dave, something more chocolatey, caramelly. People do enjoy that, but other people also come to us for like more exotic profiles, like, you know, coffees that taste more tropical and fruity and like really unique. So, you know, it depends on who you are, but I would say most people enjoy like a really good version of like an approachable classic coffee.
Okay. What's driving you to expand during this pandemic? Like, I feel like a lot of people are retracting, but it sounds like you guys are still wanting to grow, and you guys are moving forward with growing.
Yeah, it's called insanity, Jason. Something snapped in my brain during the pandemic, and I think honestly it's because of our 10-year goal. That's what's driven us. So if we didn't have that goal, we likely would have stayed put on a lot of things and like, you know, and yeah, maybe retract or at least just don't do anything. But, you know, opportunities came up, and I think we were still pursuing projects that we had been working on for a while, like our Vancouver one. And so, you know, that one, we just want to make sure that we stay true to what we're doing, and like you do it in a smart way. Like I'm not suddenly like, you know, we're like, oh yeah, now's a good time to open up like 30 stores at the same time. But, you know, I think what moved us forward was that we had that goal and vision, so we're trying to stay true to it.
Yeah, I think Vancouver is a great spot though, because it's kind of like yearly, it's kind of gloomy and stuff like too, and it's kind of like, you know, lots of rain, it's kind of cold, like kind of like that Seattle weather, right? So it's like a nice warm cup of coffee is always like a bit of a mood booster, I feel like. And I also feel like Starbucks is kind of pulling out like a lot of the major shops in the cities, right? I don't think they're doing as great as they were like in the last, you know, 5-10 years. And I think a lot of people are wanting to support more of a local like coffee shops and cafes and stuff like that now. So I feel like it's good to kind of fill that void that like these big corporations were kind of in before, but now back, because especially with COVID, like the downtown sector is quite hit, and people aren't really, like, I feel like Starbucks was big, but it's kind of scaling back now. Like, I don't even drink much Starbucks now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The industry's changing a bit. And like, I feel like when you're, a $1 billion company, you have the luxury to like just open and close stores at will. So like you're so metric focused. So I'm sure like Starbucks is maybe closing even profitable stores that maybe aren't, like, maybe it's not worth it for them or whatever. Like, but yeah, I think the industry is changing and customer wants are definitely changing as well too. So,
So this podcast is about business. Any advice for entrepreneurs or someone wanting to get into business, even in coffee? Any words of wisdom or advice that you'd like to share, Jeremy?
Well, I don't know if I call them wisdom, but I have words. To me, it's just a lot of similar things to like what we all talked about today. Like, I would say, I think it's really important to really understand the industry that you're getting into before you do it. Like, I think if I were to go into a totally different industry that I didn't know, I definitely think there's way more risk in that. And I don't know if I would, how successful I would be, but knowing the coffee industry well makes it a little bit easier to know like how to be successful, or like what to do well, and or like danger spots, and then I think like doing your homework well, like having a good, like, doing all your calculations and at least trying to understand, like, okay, realistically, what do we have to do to make this business work? Like, what are the numbers, I think is important. And even in a basic way, like, don't just go in naively and just think that it'll work. And then, like, I think it's always good to have like at least some element of like passion for your business. I think it helps because I'm sure you too, there's times where you're just like, it would not be worth it if I wasn't like really into what I was doing, right? Like some of the grunt work that everyone has to do for those late nights, I think is, it's not worth it when you don't really love what you're doing, I guess. So I think that's another part, is to have at least a passion for it.
Yeah. I find that if like you're not passionate about it, you're only doing it for the money, like you'll get tired of it really quick.
Yeah, totally. And there's other ways to make money. Like, real estate is probably a better one than coffee, I'll tell you that. But like, you don't work this hard without having like a passion for it. So
I learned that a lot because I got into a lot of businesses that I realized I had no passion for.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
and they didn't obviously like last, right? Because when it got really hard, I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel worth it. And you don't have like that extra drive or like the extra spark of like coming up with more creative, solutions to your challenges. So I think it is important. And, sometimes not everyone has a passion, and I think that's fine too. But I think you just need to genuinely, I guess, care for what you're doing in some way. So
that's good advice.
Yeah. Awesome. I guess, where can we find you guys?
Well, the easiest thing right now is online. Like if you order on our website, monogramcoffee.com, for Calgary, like we do next day delivery on like beans and stuff. So I think that's great. And then just visit any of our stores, and like our university district is opening next week. So I think having a good cafe in the Northwest will be great as well too. So that one I'm excited for. So hopefully next week. But yeah, otherwise, and then socials. So.
And Instagram?
Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, Instagram. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll be looking forward to checking out the new location.
Yeah, I know. I wish like it was non-pandemic, we could have like a big opening party and definitely have you two there. But now it's like very hard to do those things. So
just do an outdoor thing. Like
yeah, I know, but like there's only so much sidewalk space you can.
That's
they probably thought about that.
Yeah, maybe like a token or something like that, like a redeem coupon or something that they can just come whenever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, something like that. But
Yeah, that'd be cool. We'll have to talk about it after.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll come check it out once things open up and bring the team there.
Yeah, we can work on some maybe some joint marketing branding stuff. That'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you bet. Love that stuff. So
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay, well, thanks so much for taking the time today and doing the call with us. And we appreciate your words and wisdom. Startup.
like I said, they're just words. No, I really appreciate the time too, and for even asking me to be a part of it. So I think what you two are doing are really cool, and I love the community it builds too, with like fellow, not same industry but same spirit of like wanting to build something, and I think it's really cool. So congrats on your success as well too.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Thanks.
Okay,
Awesome.
thanks, Jason.
Well,
Good day.
we'll chat soon, Jerry.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.